Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope everyone is having a super fantastic day today. In today's video, we are reviewing a game I just finished, Ghost of Tsushima. And I probably butchered that. So I literally just beat this game last night. And holy cow, this game was freaking fun. I loved it so much. So I thought I'd kind of break it up into pros and cons, what I didn't like and then what I did like. So first off, let's go over the things that I didn't like, because the things I didn't like are like this, and then the things that I loved is like this. So first things first, one of the things that I particularly didn't like, which I guess is more of just like a nitpicky thing, was that there was no like lock-on system. Like in a lot of games, when you're fighting multiple enemies, you can hit like the R3 button and it'll, you know, put a dot or track a certain enemy so that you can follow them and basically have the camera follow you. This one doesn't do that at all. You will be fighting like 5 dudes and you can like roll away into a tree and the tree will be like right in the camera. So, you know, that's just like a nitpicky thing that I really wanted the lock-on system. I did see a video about the directors talking about how they purposely did not put a lock-on system, and they wanted it to be like more of like a traditional like fight, like, you know, you see in a lot of these samurai movies. The only time that they're doing a one-on-one is when it's literally just a one-on-one duel with another samurai. But in this game, you're fighting a bunch of Mongols, and even in old samurai movies, they do like, you know, hit and slash over here, and then they run over to the next guy, and then they slash this one up. And so there's a lot of like moving around and slowly whittling down enemies. So, but that was just one thing that I particularly didn't like, but I do see and appreciate why they didn't do it. Alright, and another thing that I didn't quite like, which is also another like nitpick thing, is that there was no way to skip dialogue or just speed up dialogue, because there's a lot of things that you do that are kind of, I guess, repetitive. Like for instance, like there's these things called fox dens, or, you know, and there's a lot of those in the game, and you go up to them and you basically pray to them, you know, or honor them, whatever it's called. And there's like a whole little cutscene of you like clapping your hands and the fox, you know, jumping around, being all happy. But it does that every single time, and you can't skip it because it's like it's the exact same dialogue. Even when talking to NPCs or, you know, other things in the game. Like I was reading the subtitles, you know, and I was just trying to at least make it go faster, because there's, like I said, there's some things that were kind of repetitive or is the same thing, and it would have just been nice to be able to just skip the dialogue and get straight into the gameplay. Now this is another thing, or I guess this next thing is another thing that I didn't run into necessarily, and I did this on purpose, is that you had an option to play the game in Japanese with English subtitles, or you can play it in English with, I guess, English subtitles. I mean, I guess you could put it in Japanese subtitles, but I don't read or speak Japanese. But if you played it in Japanese, so that the characters spoke Japanese with the English subtitles, it still had, the characters were designed, like they animated them so that they were saying the English words. So like, it was kind of actually the backwards of what most people see here in America, is because we watch, you know, Japanese things or even anime in Japanese with English subtitles, and so their mouths are speaking Japanese, obviously, but this one is like the reverse opposite. Is that they're saying English, like their mouths were mouthing English words, but they were speaking Japanese. So I particularly didn't do that. I decided to play it in English with English subtitles. I mean, I like subtitles on all my games anyway, just in case like I'm not paying attention, I can like look and read it really quick. And I know someone's gonna roast me in the comments, you know, subs not dubs, but you know, I prefer dubbed, to be 100% honest. Don't get me wrong, I do watch a lot of like anime type things, and I do like watching it in subs. So that is that. Now, moving on to what I absolutely loved about this game. First off, this game was beautiful. Like, the landscapes that you go to, the environments that you're in is just so, like wow. Like, when I was going through areas, I was like, holy cow, like, this looks freaking amazing. I also think that Sucker Punch was maybe trying to show off. They're like, let's see how many particles we can have fly across the screen and have our game still run super smooth. Because, like, literally no matter where you are in the game, there's, like, leaves falling through, there's butterflies, dragonflies, pollen, you name it. Always flying through the screen. Not always a ton, but, and the game never crashed for me. Never, at least for me personally, never dropped, what's the word? The frame rate never dropped. I couldn't think of it for a second. It stayed actually the same the entire playthrough. I'm actually really surprised that they were able to make this game look so good on a PS4. I was playing on PS4 Pro, and wow, as for the PS4 coming to an end, this was a great game to like end the, I guess, generation for the PS4. Such an amazing game, so beautiful. The game itself as a whole was extremely beautiful and extremely eye-blazing. Moving on to the second point that I really liked was the combat. The combat was so fun. You get like different stances. There's 4 different stances, and I'm gonna forget what they're actually called. I know there's like the wind stance, the I think rock stance, water stance, and I think moon stance. I could be wrong. Anyways, basically the different stances correlate with the different weapons that your enemies have. Like if there's a sword, you want to use the sword stance, which was, anyways, but yeah, like so if someone was you're fighting someone with a sword, you'd want to switch the sword stance that was best to take out enemies with swords. Now when I first heard about this, I thought it was going to be like just a lot to try to switch out between all these different stances with 5 guys that you're fighting all at the same time, but the game doesn't do that. It actually introduces it like at a pace that was able to pick it up and learn it, and then by the time I got this one done, it was around the same time that they introduced a new stance. So when you first start out, I believe you just start out with the sword stance, which makes sense because samurais in history, which going off track here a little bit, this game took a lot of inspiration from real life Japanese history of the Mongol invasion of Japan. And so, you know, 16th century Japan, you know, these samurais, they only really fought one-on-one duels. So they didn't really fight like shield dudes or spear dudes. I mean, I'm sure they did. I don't know my history as much as I might seem. But yeah, so like you start out with just the sword stance, and by the end, I was able to switch through all these stances like a freaking samurai master, man. It was freaking awesome. And that was like one thing that I super enjoyed, was just the combat was fresh, it was new, it was amazing. I loved it a lot. And that's kind of like when I was going back to the nitpicky thing, that the lock-on system would have been helpful, but I also really appreciate why they did it. Going off into the, I guess, combat thing is that you had an opportunity whenever you ran into a group of enemies that you could do a standoff, which is, you know, you stood in front of them and then you waited for them to attack, and right as they attack, you whip out your sword and you kill them in one hit. And you have, depending on the armor you have, I believe the Sakai armor lets you add an extra 2 additional slashes, because normally you get to do 3, but I think the Sakai armor, or it's the Ghost armor, I think it's Sakai armor, basically take out 5 dudes in one hit, like basically KO. It's super fun, but it would seem pretty easy, but as you progress, just like the rest of the game, the enemies get smarter and they try to juke you out. So they'll like jump forward at you to try to get you to release the button, and if you release too early, they hit you and they basically knock your health down all the way down to 1 HP. Like, it's insane. So the timing, I was wishy-washy with it. There are some times where I was a freaking samurai master and I was getting it every single time, and then there's later in the game where they juked me out so bad, like literally every time. It was nuts. Now, I've said this before in other videos, but I'm a big fan of cosmetics in games. I like to dress up my character how I want them to look, and this game lets you to basically dress them up however you want. You don't get a lot of armors right away, like you just start out with broken armor, but as you progress throughout the game, you unlock more stuff, you find stuff, stuff, armor is given to you, and then you can go to these merchants and you can buy different like dyes to make the same armor look different colors. I'm a big fan of all the armors. My favorite armor probably in the game was probably the Ghost armor, which is the armor he's wearing on the cover. I wore that one a lot, and then the Sakai armor just because that looked freaking awesome. There's a few armors that I did like. Actually, towards the end game, I wore this one armor, and I think it's Kinsei armor. And basically, the armor, like in these armors that you have different abilities to them too. So it's not like you're just wearing them to look cool. Like I said, the Sakai armor has really high, like increases your attack and whatnot. Another thing that I actually really appreciated was that there was no real like level system. Like you don't level up. It's not something like Dark Souls, for instance. Like if you're stuck on a boss, you can leave and go level up as high as you want to. Granted, it'll take long at lower levels, but you can do that. You can go and level up a bunch and then come back and fight the enemy and you'll be physically stronger. Well, this game doesn't do that. There's no level system. The enemies are more or less the same. Granted, they do get a little smarter as you progress throughout the game, but they're not necessarily a higher level, if that makes sense. You basically just learn more skills that help you to fight enemies easier. Like at the beginning of the game, like I said, you only have the sword stance, which I think is the stone stance. I could be wrong. But you only have that one stance. Well, when you fight guys with spears, those stances like just aren't effective. Like I was trying fighting them and they just don't work, and the spear guys will jump out of the way, or they'll block your attack kind of thing. So it's not that you level up, it's just that you learn more skills that make the game or make the enemies easier to take down. So another feature that I really thought was cool that I particularly haven't seen in a game before is that there was no like overhead map. A lot of games that are open world have like a map up at the top corner or bottom corner somewhere. A wind system, which I think is what they would call it, and the little touchpad sensor on the DualShock controller, if you just slid up, because it is a touch pad, you just slid up, the wind would blow and you would see like these little streaks, and whatever way the wind was blowing was the direction that you needed to go. I really appreciated not having, because me particular, I don't need to look at the map, I just need to know which direction to go. So I thought that was really cool without having to open the map. I really liked is that the boss fights in this game were really fun. They were always one-on-one, typically with for the most part it was with other samurai. There's a few like Mongol generals that had shields and like a spear or a sword, but the boss fights were always really fun. Like as you can see, I recorded a lot of the boss fights, and yeah, they were freaking awesome. I loved almost all of them. There's this one boss, like you fight like these 5 assassins, and one of the ones, I forget his name, I'm sure I'll throw it up on here, was insanely hard, at least for me. I don't know why I died so much. All the other enemies, some of them I beat first try, some of them I beat 2 or 3 tries, and I was able to get it. But this dude, frick man, it took me like I think 30 tries to beat him. I just was not having any luck, and I finally beat him, and we died at the same time, which is ridiculous. So it's still a win, I suppose, but I didn't actually get to beat him. But yeah, the boss fights in this game are super awesome. The end fight with the Khan is really fun. I like that one. And some of the boss fights are pretty emotional. Like, I guess, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen or haven't played the game, you find your best friend towards the beginning, and he helps you fight, and then halfway through, your best friend betrays you, and you fight him, and it was like a really like emotional fight. I don't know, it was epic. It was really fun and really crazy. And then even at the end, spoiler warning, you fight your uncle at the very end, and that was intense. That gave me like crazy like Obi-Wan versus Anakin vibe, where Obi-Wan's like, "You are a brother to me," but in this game, like Lord Shimura's like, "You were like a son to me, like we were gonna be family, and you betrayed everything." And Jin's just like, yeah, man, but I saved the country, so suck it. But no, that fight is freaking epic. One of my favorite fights in the entire game was that last fight. And kind of going with that, like the whole like story, if you were just to do the main missions, like the side missions, don't get me wrong, were fun. Like I liked, you know, Yuna's story and Masako's story. They're all like interesting. Some parts were like, but they, you know, the side missions for most part were really fun. But the main story quest was awesome. Like the main focus of the story of trying to get, take back Tsushima was awesome. You play obviously as Jin, and that opening battle scene was freaking incredible. The second I played that, I was immediately hooked. This game was awesome. The overall story of just a few samurai, you know, you and your uncle and then a few others coming back and basically driving the Mongols out and saving Tsushima was all a very, very good story. I enjoyed it a bunch. With that being said, the end of this was very satisfying. Like, there's a lot of games that like the whole game is really good and then they just botch the ending. This didn't do that for me. For me, the whole game was fun and awesome and satisfying and interesting and just had me at the edge of my seat a lot of times. And then the very end was incredibly satisfying. I really enjoyed the ending. I feel like it was a good landing. I hope that they make a sequel. I don't know if they will or not, but I guess they kind of set it up for a sequel where your uncle Shimura or Lord Shimura goes a certain way and you live your life as the ghost now. It's your new life and you're on the run. And so I hope that they make a game about that. That would be super fun and I'd be totally down to play that. And just kind of thinking about this overall, man, I love this game. Overall, you know, if I were to give this a rating out of 10, I would definitely give this probably a 9.5 for me. It was an amazing game. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend playing it. Like I said, there's a few things that I think would keep it from a 10, but you know, 9.5 is still an amazing score. I freaking love this game. I think right now I'm sitting at 87% completed, so I'm definitely going to go back after this video and we're going to try to get the platinum. It'll be one of the few games that I've done where I've actually went back and got the platinum trophy. And I only do that if I really enjoy the game. Like I said, freaking awesome, freaking amazing. Go play this game if you haven't already. Unfortunately, it's only on PlayStation 4, so sorry Xbox and PC players. I'm sure eventually PC, but you know, who knows. I would not be surprised if this is a Game of the Year contender, and if not, winner. Like, this game blew me away. So good. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how good Cyberpunk is. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning into this video, this game review. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. Just want to have a big shout out to everyone that is subscribed. You guys are freaking awesome. We're moving our way up to 200 subscribers. We're at, the last I looked was 161, so we are moving up. Like I said, if you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It would help me out a ton. You guys are awesome. Stay tuned for more videos. And yeah, we'll see you next time.